Alright, let's take a look at this quick angle problem here. So, I have this kind of X figure. It has two parallel lines at the top and the bottom, and the cross of the X. So, I know a few angles. I know this angle here is 31. I know this angle is 58. Well, what does this angle equal? So, there are a couple of ways to do this, but let's do it the following way. So we can see, basically there's a triangle here. So if we can find the other two measures for the other two angles, then we should be able to use the fact that a triangle has 180 degrees to solve for x. So let's solve for this angle here. So first of all, we know our z rule. Well, let's look at our z. So here's our z rule, and that tells me that alternating angles for parallel lines are equal. So here's one angle, here's its alternating angle. So I know those angles are equal, so I know this is going to be 31 degrees. All right, that's good. We have one. Let's see if we can get the other. The other angle, well, we know the idea of adjacent angles. So if we have two angles that are adjacent, they have to be supplementary. So we know that this angle here, plus 58 degrees, has to be 180. So we do a little calculation. 180 minus 58 gives us 122, and all these are degrees. So we know that this angle here, since this angle and this angle are supplementary, this angle has to be 122 degrees. And then finally, let's use the fact that we have a triangle here, this triangle here, to solve for x. We know that the sum of the angles has to add up to 180, so we know that 31 degrees plus 122 degrees plus x degrees has to be 180. And then solving this, well, I'll leave the steps for you to check, but we guess that x equals 27 degrees, and that's our final answer. All right, let's look at the second problem. The second problem is fairly similar. We have two parallel lines, and we have two transversals that aren't parallel to each other. And so what that means is that at the end here, past the topmost parallel line, they form a triangle. Well, we know that the three angles inside this triangle have to add up to 180 degrees. We know one. So if we can find this angle here, then we'll be able to solve for the angle x. So our other rule that has to do with angles is the F rule. So the F rule tells us if we can find an F, here's our F, it tells us that corresponding angles have to be equal. So here is 80 degrees, so this angle in here, by the F rule, also has to be 80 degrees. And then finally, well, we have two of the three angles in a triangle, so we can just figure out the third. So we have 80 degrees plus 50 degrees plus x has to be 180 degrees. And again, solving that, we can check that x is 50 degrees. And we're done. All right, in this problem, we want to find the sum of x, y, and z, or the measures of angles x, y, and z. So, this one, it looks like we don't have too much information, but our angle rules can help us out here. So, what angles are congruent to x, y, and z? Well, we know that by vertical angles, if this angle is z, so is this angle. So we can label that angle z. And again, same thing. Since this angle is here, and this angle is the vertical angle of angle x, then this angle also has to have the same measure. So we'll call that x. And finally, well, if we look at what's going on here, we have a great big F. So if you look at that, we have a great big F. And so this angle and this angle are corresponding angles. So I can label that y. And so if I look at that, I have x plus y plus z. They're the three angles of a triangle. So this is really easy. So I can say x plus y plus z is 180. Alright, now let's take a look at this problem. So this one, we still have our two parallel lines. This time we have kind of a transversal just crossing one, and another transversal crossing the other. But what we can do is to make this more familiar to us and help us with these rules, we can artificially extend these two lines. So let's do that. In fact, let me just draw it in blue. So there's our artificial extension. We'll just draw in those extra lines. So, well, how can we find angle x? Well, let's do a little bit of angle chasing. So we know that the vertical angle to x has the same measure, so they're going to have the same measure. I can label that x. I notice that I have, if we look here, I have another f, so I have some corresponding angles. That angle corresponds to that angle. Since I have a transversal that runs through these two lines, the corresponding angles have to be equal. And the two lines are parallel. That's important as well, because these lines are parallel. So I know that this angle is going to be 37 degrees. And this angle here, our final angle, well, that's supplementary to 75, so I know they have to add up to 180. So this angle has to be 105 degrees. That's a very big degree. Let's make it smaller. There we go. So I know 75 plus 105 is 180 because these angles are supplementary. So we're good to go. Now it's just a triangle problem. So we get that 105 degrees plus 37 degrees plus x equals 180 degrees. So what does that tell us? That is 142 plus x, 142 degrees plus x equals 180 degrees. So that means that x equals 38 degrees. There we go. So we found the measure of the angle x.